welcome to my tank review. Today I will be reviewing one of my favorite tanks, the T49, and I will be talking about its stats a bit at first. Then I will go over to talk about my playstyle with it and give some hints on how to play it. And lastly, I will give the tank a rating. So to the stats of the tank. First, I'm gonna talk about its firepower, as it is the main part about the tank that makes it so special. So its penetration with calibrated, of course, is 167 heat pen and 83 HE pen, which is very low penetration for a T8 tank. So you're gonna have to flank your enemies most of the time, or splash HE shots into them. Um, into its alpha damage, it has 560 damage with its heat, 780 damage on its HE when it penetrates, and on average when you splash your HEs into the enemy it's between 200 and 400 damage. Its reload time is 16.5 seconds, which is quite a long reload, so when you shoot the enemy once, you're going to have to hide, otherwise you're gonna take multiple shots in return. Like, if it's a medium tank, you might take 4 shots in return in that time. So, it's accuracy. Such a long reload, you want to hit your shots, but sadly that's pretty hard to do with its accuracy. It has 0.459 accuracy. With my configuration, I'm going to show what I have equipped on it in the background now. The dispersion on the move is terrible, and the aim time is very long at 6.2 seconds. And on top of that, RNG can screw you even if you fully aim those 6.2 seconds. It's the gun depression and gun elevation. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation. It doesn't have any turret armor, so it's just nice to get your shots off hills with it at least. So it doesn't struggle with it like Chinese tanks or some Russian tanks. Now onto its survivability. First, its armor. It has no armor. It's an overmatch all around the hull. The front of the turret is not an overmatch, but it's so weak that it gets penetrated by everything. It is possible though to block some HE shells with your tracks or your gunman. So make sure to remember to not sit straight in front of an enemy T49, because if you angle, show your tracks, then they might fail the HE. Its HP, it has 1272 HP with my configuration, which is not a lot of HP. It's still in line with the other light tanks though, so you're gonna have to make sure to take almost no damage. Onto the stats that affect the gameplay heavily. It's camera rating first. With maxed out crew skills, it has 46% camera rating in-game, which realistically translates to around 30% camo. It's pretty low for a light tank, so it's not very sneaky. Other light tanks, especially Russian light tanks, have a lot more camo ratings, so they can sneak around more. But the camo is enough for it to be able to be comfortable at 200 meters ranges to its enemy. So if you have the rangefinder on and look at your enemy, if it's around 200 meters or above that, then they will most likely not spot you. Now it's mobility. It has a top speed of 72 km/h, which is very nice. So when you reach that going downhill or driving along a street, you will be zooming across the map. Sadly, its power to weight ratio is not that good. So it has a pretty mediocre acceleration, and on medium and soft terrain it usually only drives around 60 km/h. So that's the stats I wanted to talk about with it. Now onto the playstyle I have with it. This part now, though, as a disclaimer, the part I'm talking about now is how I play it. So if you see someone else talk about it, they might play it different. So I play it as a light tank with a mix of flap slap gameplay and assassin gameplay. I'm going to explain what they are. Flap slap means you try to do damage without taking shots in return. Mostly from the ally side of the battlefield. So what you will be doing, you will peekaboo around corner or do ambush shots in a bush. You will play a supporting role to allies. So you will have allies take shots for you and then punish the enemy along with the ally. And those things, like, you can only do them from the ally side of the battlefield. The other gameplay, assassin gameplay, is it means you try to flank the enemy the long way. So when there's an opening in the enemy formation, you might try to beeline it to their spawn and get some shots into their back. In assassin gameplay, you also try to do damage without taking any shots in return. But the main difference between flap slap and assassin is that assassins play from the enemy side of the battlefield. I hope that was understandable what rating I would give it. So it's not a fighter tank. In fact, it goes into every confrontation at a disadvantage. So it's always weaker than its enemy, even the T49 versus T49, funnily enough. Both T49s are at a disadvantage. So yeah, most of your gameplay is using allies to gain the advantage in the fights. Or if you're a more experienced player, you can just outplay your opponent, right? The T49 has a high skill floor, and the skill ceiling isn't actually too far from the skill floor, so it's hard to even learn how to play the tank. And then once you have it, there's not much more room for improvement. The most you can improve is just learning more about what your opponents do, not a lot of what the tank can do. So overall, I rate the tank a 7 out of 10, because it is a weak tank, but it's also a lot of fun to play when you have actually mastered it, when you have approached that skill ceiling. And honestly, hitting shots for 800 more damage in a light tank that's so fast is just, it's very funny. Alright? So I recommend you have at least 2000 WN8 before trying to even master it. Otherwise you will suffer. That's all I can say, it's suffering. As it is extremely difficult to play. So yeah, this was my tank review on the T49. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I'll be seeing you in another video. Bye!